Okay, so boom. Sudan gained independence in the 50s, in the 1950s. There were coups a lot. Every time somebody came into power, they were ousted. There was a coup in 1958, in 1969, in 1985, and again in 1989. The coup in 1989 was done by Omar al-Bashir, who was in control for about 30 years. All right? Let's discuss Bashir. He had a close relationship with the Sudanese Armed Forces, which is Sudan's army. SAF is the legitimate Sudanese army. Okay? Bashir relied on them to quell conflict in what is now South Sudan. Quell conflict. Now, more conflict arises in the west of Sudan, in Darfur. Rather than relying on the Sudanese armed forces, the legitimate Sudanese military, Bashir funds like a militia group called the Janjaweed, okay? In Darfur. Make no mistake, the Janjaweed and the Sudanese armed forces have both been accused of mass brutality towards citizens, and I feel like those are real sound accusations, me personally. In 2011, after a long civil war ended, South Sudan became its own nation. As we've discussed, South Sudan is the youngest nation on Earth, being that it was created in 2011. Shortly after it declared independence, South Sudan became its own independent thing. Sudan had a huge economic downturn because South Sudan, given where the border between the two was drawn, between South Sudan and Sudan proper, the rest of Sudan, where that border is, the majority of oil fields were now in South Sudan, therefore not in Bashir's control. Okay? So big ol' economic downturn. I'm not sure when, what date, what year, the Janjaweed becomes a legitimate entity. Bashir legitimizes them as a real thing, and their name no longer is the Janjaweed. They are called the Rapid Support Forces. He legitimizes their existence by giving them official status as a paramilitary group. Excuse me, it was in 2013. So that was in 2013 when that happened. So 2 years after South Sudan declared independence. The leader of the Rapid Support Forces, RSF, which was formerly the Janjaweed, is a man they call Hemedti. This is a play on the word Hemaiti, which means my protector in Arabic. So what Bashir was doing was, he said, hang on, I know that people get ousted in this Mickey Ficky. We tend to oust motherfuckers around here. I ousted the last guy, so I need to make sure that the military is cool with me, the paramilitary is cool with me. Let me make sure everybody is cool with me. So, Rapid Support Forces, Janjaweed, Hemedti, my protector. He keeps him, he's his left hand, and then his right hand is the Sudanese Armed Forces, which is led by a man named Burhan. Okay? Burhan, Hemedti. The man controlling all this shit is Bashir. Okay? Okay. In 2018, the civilians start to protest. The people of Sudan start to protest. Because old dude has been in power forever, Bashir, and they're over it. And also because the annual budget came out and it showed that 60 to 70% of spending would be spent on security. And RSF and SAF, so the two military type groups, they kept getting control of different industries. They kept getting, oh, here's so much money, and you have financial autonomy. Do whatever you want with that money. 60 to 70% of our national budget. So the citizens are like, SOS. Hello? Help? So, 2018, civilians start to protest the fact that the RSF and SAF are getting put in charge of so many different industries. They have so much money that they're able to do all kind of thing. And the people are suffering. So the citizens uprising, protesting, uprising. They are not stopping, they are not relenting. And it becomes clear to Hemedti and Burhan. They were like, bro, Bashir's gotta go. Bashir's gotta go. The people are not having this shit. He gotta go. So Bashir does indeed. He gets ousted. In 2019, January 2019, the two groups worked together to remove him from power. Now, while protesters do celebrate the fact that Bashir is no longer in power, they are extremely aware of the fact that they cannot trust the two groups that ousted this man from power. They cannot trust Hemedti. They cannot trust Burhan. They don't trust RSF or SAF at this point because the civilians have been screwed by everybody. So they continued protesting. And in June of 2019, RSF killed like over 100 people who were peacefully demonstrating. So the United Kingdom, the United States, United Arab Emirates, Saudi Arabia, and the African Union pressured Sudan to accept a peace-sharing agreement, okay? So that it would be like a transitional government. The military would be in charge for 21 months, and then it would go to civilian control for 18 months. Burhan would be the chair, Hemedti would be the vice chair. Off top, the civilians, the citizens are like, this isn't going to work, bro. Why are you putting these two people in charge? They're a problem. They're a problem. They're a problem. And then everybody else who for some reason has a fucking say, the United States, the UK, Saudi, everybody and their mother is like, no, those two. It'll be those two guys, Burhan and Hemedti. No, them two, even though you guys keep telling us you don't trust them. So then guess what? It doesn't work because the two of them install a new prime minister. I don't know nothing about that, who that prime minister was. The poor bastard quit though because him was stressed out. He couldn't take it, girl. He said this shit is too much because all kind of stuff was happening. There was so much unrest and he resigned in 2022. Now, when that prime minister resigned, Burhan was the chair. Burhan, SAF. Hemedti, RSF. Because prime minister had resigned, Burhan was de facto leader. Mama, if there's one thing about Hemedti, his ass isn't here to play second fiddle. Okay? So now, there's conflict between these two men. In 2022, the same group of characters, UK, US, UAE, African Union, etc., etc. They do another deal for a transitional government. Part of this deal is that the Sudanese Armed Forces, SAF, will like dissolve RSF. That they will just like kind of, instead of having like two armed forces, they will and become one. Now, Hemedti has become rich as fuck over all this time. So he's like not really here for that. And his proposal was, okay, well, if that's going to happen, let's do it over a 10-year period. I believe he said, yeah, over a 10-year period. And Burhan is like, how about 2 years? So still, there is suffering of the civilian population because of two men's egos. Also, make no mistake, there are 1,000 international actors. You know, some countries fund RSF, some countries fund SAF, and you know who's stuck in the crosshairs every time? The populace of Sudan. Again, go to the history playlist on my page. I think it's part 21, where I talk about like the history of Sudan in terms of, I mean, like, girl, history, all this, you need to know, like, what happened pre-independence. Great, love you. Also, Bison Blast for information. Also, Unraveling Ru'ah for information. Have a good day.